So welcome to the vision portion of our life groups. This past week, we sent out an email to everyone who's been connected to a life group this semester with a short survey. The purpose of that survey is to get every single one of you guys connected to a life group in the fall semester. Now, you may be thinking that August is far away, but I promise you it's right around the corner. And the reason why we do surveys to get you connected and to get you pre-registered for life groups in the fall is because we care about life groups that much. We know that covenant communities are crucial at the Ransom Church. Now, your life leader will have a computer available with internet access after this video. They can help you do the survey. All you have to do is just go through your inbox, check out a survey sent from us, the Ransom Church, and fill it out. It takes less than 2 minutes to complete, and we get your feedback, and we learn how to make life groups even better for you guys. Oh, and one more thing. I want to let you know that next week is the last week of life groups, and we have produced a special VisionCast video for every single life group, whether you're in R3 or topical study. Watch that video, plan a nice party afterwards, have a blast. That's what my life group is doing. And I'm excited to see what God does during this VisionCast portion. We're going to do communion, which is pretty incredible. Okay, that's what Covenant Communities is all about, guys. I'll see you next time. Have an incredible group one more time, and I'll check you again.
Well, I'm excited to join you tonight at R3 as we continue to wrestle with this idea, who is Jesus? Tonight we're diving into the topic, Jesus the Master. And truthfully, that's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? Because we all like to be in charge. We like to be in control. And this isn't new. It goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, when you see Adam and Eve in the garden. And you see Satan's temptation, you will be like God. Which is interesting to me because God actually made us God-like. He gave us His image. We're called to reflect His nature. And the temptation is just to take it a little bit too far. We're called to reflect God in all that we do. And yet sometimes we try to replace Him. Sometimes we try to replace Him by rebelling. We try to just take charge and say, I'm going to do it my own way. And then there are others of us who try to replace Him through obedience and actually through religion. We try to say, I got to be good enough. I got to do enough. Either one of these will lead us far, far off the course. And we looked at two stories as we wrestled with this whole topic. One of those stories came from Matthew chapter 23. And as we looked at Matthew 23, what we saw is a story about the Pharisees and how the Pharisees were trying to do the right thing at first. They were trying to lead people to follow God. But they became enamored with the control that it gave them, and they multiplied the number of ways that men may let God down. But what they didn't multiply, what they didn't give men, was a way to make it right. They failed in helping men to please God. And so that's where we find people in Matthew chapter 23. And the truth is, we see this in the church today. How often do we say, I want to live in a way, I want to show myself in a way that everybody thinks I have it all together. Everybody thinks I got it polished and I'm all put together. And that's just not the case. And Jesus warns us about this. When you turn to Matthew chapter 23, verses 8 through 10, it says, don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your spiritual Father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, or that word could be translated master, for you have only one teacher, you have only one master, the Messiah. In other words, Jesus says to us, you only have one master. And so if He is our master, if He is our standard, it should go without saying that we should try to follow, that we should try to walk in His footsteps, which makes the challenge from our second story so tough. In John chapter 13, it tells the story of the Passover celebration. It says, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that His hour had come to leave this world and return to His Father. He loved His disciples during His ministry on earth, and now He loved them to the very end. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given Him authority over everything, and that He had come from God and would return to God. So He got up from the table, took off His robe, wrapped a towel around His waist, and poured water into a basin. Then He began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel He had around Him. Jesus says to us, I am the Master. You call me Lord, and that's right, that's what I am. But listen, if you just saw me serve, what does that mean for you? You just saw me serve in the lowliest of ways, and that's what I'm calling you to do too. And so if Jesus, our Master, is a servant, what are the ramifications of that on our faith? If we're going to truly live for him and reflect him, what will that mean in my life? As he takes up his cross to die for me, how can I take up my cross to live for him? The question we want to ask ourselves as we wrestle with this topic today is, will you let Jesus be your master? Have a great discussion, and we're excited to come back for Reflect.
So welcome to Reflect. Let's engage in a quick activity. Don't be afraid. It's not going to be too strenuous, but raise your hand if someone has ever said a negative comment about you. Okay, raise your hand. All right. Now put them down. Shake your head up and down if that comment hurt your feelings. Yes, that's everyone watching. Everyone watching here can relate to me, okay? Everyone's had something said about them, right? And in Pastor Phil's message this Sunday, he shared a story about the shirt he was wearing, and he asked everyone if they liked it, whether they're in downtown or Harrisburg. Did you like his shirt? And then some people would say yes, and some people would say no, or some people would say nothing at all. But the truth is, it doesn't really matter what people think. The only person that matters is his wife. She likes it. She picked it out. So that's the only opinion that matters. And after that story, he shared a point that just stirred my soul a little bit. And this is what it said. When it comes to your life, only one opinion matters: the master's. Can I just be honest with you guys? From time to time, my feelings get hurt. Okay, I forget that the master's words are the only thing that really matters, that his Bible, his scripture, it tells me so. And a couple of weeks ago, we looked at the Apostle Paul's life and how he overcame the what ifs, and we saw his writings in Philippians chapter 3 to the solution on how to really overcome the what ifs. Now, in this week's Reflect, I want to continue to look at the life of the Apostle Paul and how he overcame the opinions of others. You see, when the Apostle Paul encountered Jesus on the road to Damascus, he was knocked off his horse, off his donkey, and he couldn't see for quite some time. Now, when Jesus opened his eyes, he felt a call to reach all the Gentiles in the area. The Gentiles are people who weren't Jews. Anyone who wasn't a Jew was a Gentile. So you can imagine that when Jews were looking at him, they probably gave him a lot of criticism. They didn't probably give him, they gave him criticism. If we look at the letter of Galatians in the New Testament, we can see that he had much adversity. You see, at that time, he begins the letter by writing almost like a defense. He's calling out the people in the area of Galatia, the church in Galatia, because here's what's going on. The people there were beginning to listen to a different kind of gospel that the Apostle Paul came and taught. Now, the reason why they're being swayed is that people, mostly the Jews in that area, was saying that Paul wasn't really speaking truth because he wasn't the original 12 disciples. So you can imagine Paul's position. He wasn't the original 12, so they're saying he doesn't really know what he talks about. The second thing is they said that Paul made it too easy to become a Christian. You see, the Jews in the area were circumcised, and they're saying, hey, if you want to be a Christian, a follower of Jesus, you need to be circumcised too. And Paul absolved all of that, and they were kind of upset about it. So they're swaying the entire crowd. So you can imagine Paul just hearing these words and just becoming furious. But check out what he says in Galatians 1 verse 10. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. So let me give you a little bit of context here. In Paul's time, it would take days, weeks, months to receive news from one church to another. He didn't hear about the grumblings for quite some time, maybe even weeks. We don't really know, but it was a period of time. So you can imagine in Paul's position, he leaves a church in Galatia, okay, and he thinks everything's okay. He preaches the gospel. People become saved, churches start, people start meeting in life groups around the area, and everything's well. But then he receives news weeks later. Can you imagine being in his position and just hearing that? It must have stung so much. That stings. Maybe you found yourself that way, receiving news delayed, and the more time goes by, it almost hurts a little bit more. But in our day and age, we have social media, we have the internet, so we receive news right away. You know, it can be instant, but they both hurt, right? When you receive criticism, when you receive opinions from others, it can hurt. But let's look at the maturity of the Apostle Paul. Let's look at Galatians 1:10 one more time. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. So if you'll give me permission, I'd like to share with you a little nugget of insight if you haven't heard this already. You won't please everyone. I'm sorry, but you can't. There will always be criticism in your life, especially if you're a follower of Jesus and you see yourself ransomed by Christ. You see, the Apostle Paul is choosing to listen to only one source, his master, God. And we can't live our life serving God and still listen to the opinions of others and then turn our affection to the applause of others. But if you're like me, criticism, opinions can hurt, right? And in case you've forgotten what God's voice sounds like or what he says to you, here's a couple of scriptures to remind you of how he sees you and what his voice sounds like. Since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you, I will give people in exchange for you, nations in exchange for your life. Now, if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we share in his sufferings, in order that we may also share in his glory. We are loved, we are co-heirs with Christ, and that is unbelievable. You see, when Jesus Christ walked the earth doing his ministry, he received much criticism. Many accusations came his way, but he only listened to one voice, his Father. You see, the Apostle Paul tells us in Romans 8:17, that's the verse we just read, that there will be suffering in this world. And Jesus tells us to fear not, because he has overcome the world. You see, we can serve in the midst of hardship, in the midst of people just telling us their opinions, their criticisms. We can be just like Christ in the final moments of his ministry and wash the feet of others. We can even wash the feet. We can serve the people who are trying to put us down. And we have a choice every single time of who to listen to and who to serve. But we have overcome the world. We can serve even the people who would try to speak against us. You guys have an amazing discussion, and I'll see you back for React. So welcome to this week's React. Last week we had a mini cardboard testimony moment, and from what I've heard, it went really well, and I'm so grateful for that. With this being the last week of R3s, I thought it'd be a great idea to just ask you two simple questions. First, what was the most memorable moment of your life group this semester? And the second one is, how has community impacted you this semester? Thank you guys for following along with R3 this semester. I am looking forward to what God does in the fall coming up pretty soon. God bless you guys. Have an amazing discussion, and I'll see you next time.